Neubacher with Facebook Live. It's a Wednesday, April 4th. It's a blustery day. It looks more like winter, I guess, than it does spring outside. So we're inside. We've gone over to Macomb County. We're going to talk with County Executive Mark Hackel, who we've been trying to get a hold of for a number of times. And it's not because he's not available. It's just that he's so busy with so many other activities that are going on in the county. He's brought us here to show us a very impressive facility here, COMTEC, and to talk a little bit about some of the questions you have about roads, about the RTA, and any other comments or questions that you might have. Let us know. Just to share this with your friends and family and so on Facebook. And if you have any questions, feel free to send those. George Fox is here, as always, with the camera. Thank you, George, for being here. If he has a question he gets from you, he'll pass it along to me. And it's not going to be me you're going to be asking questions of. It's Mark Hackel. So we thank you, Mark Hackel, for letting us come and visit with you. You are such a vocal person about so many things. We wanted to get your take, first of all, on this beautiful facility, and then talk a little bit more about what's going on with our roads. So many people are angry about the roads, and the solution is the RTA solution. So let's start with a tour here, a little bit of what you have, and then go from there.
Yeah, you bet. This is Communications Technology Center. It's probably the most comprehensive communications technology center when it comes to public safety than anywhere else in North America. This was kind of a concept that was thought about for many years. I started as a dispatcher at 18 years of age. It come to the realization that there's so many different dispatch centers around the county and probably throughout the state for that matter. And then come to look at, even within county government, there's a kind of a disconnect when it comes to Department of Roads, the dispatch center, your emergency management, and even your IT folks. And so as I became county executive, I come to realize here in Macomb County, we have an incredible advantage right now where we're talking about technology. We have an infrastructure in place. We're going to have over 300 cameras around the major intersections in Macomb County that have the most high-tech cameras, zoom out the clarity, the nighttime vision. It's incredible what they had. So we started realizing, is there a way, how do we bring that together with one facility so our dispatchers can see this, but yet our road departments can monitor this? So obviously, probably the wow factor we have here is this 50-foot wall that we have here of actual cameras itself that can display 54 different scenarios or one big scenario. And not only does that have capabilities of seeing what's going on the roadways, some of the intersections, if something was to happen with a bank robbery or somebody that got into an accident, we can zoom in and see it. Dispatchers now can kind of be virtual police officers by seeing this stuff real time. We could.
Are these dispatchers police officers for different communities in Macomb?
They're civilian dispatchers, but now we have taken on the role of being the dispatch center for the Clinton Township Police Department, for Sterling Heights Police Department, many others. So we built this with the concept of if they wanted to add on or others wanted to be participants in this, that they could. And we have seen the growth. Obviously, a lot of fire departments are part of this. The main sheriff's department function or responsibility. So it's incredible the technology and the capabilities that we have here. Even now with schools, we've been able to connect with our schools. If there was some kind of a active shooter situation, we can now tap into the actual camera system within the school and see what's happening real time. So officers that are responding, obviously can keep themselves out of harm's way, but also know exactly how to deal with whatever the scenario is inside that school. So.
What's interesting is that I'm a West Sider, so coming over to the East Side, you're an East Sider, been here all your life. I'm thinking, and it's kind of foreign land for a lot of us. So for me, from being on the West Side, I flew over this area many times over the years. Tell us what is entailed here in this county. How big is this county? How many communities are there? How many miles of roads? How many miles of waterway are you dealing with? This is a big county here.
Yeah, no question about it. As far as population base, it's the third largest county in the state of Michigan. But when you're looking at geographic or land mass, because of Lake St. Clair, it kind of cuts off a portion of it. So as far as the actual size of the land itself, it's not as big as Wayne County and or Oakland County. No, it's not. But again, it incorporates 27. And obviously Utica in the center of it, and you've got the East Point and Lake St. Clair as far as St. Clair Shores out on the East Coast. And I say the East Coast because we have Lake St. Clair, which is probably the busiest freshwater lake than anywhere else in the entire country. There is no other freshwater lake that has as much boating activity, recreational activity, fishing activity than Lake St. Clair, even of the other Great Lakes. So with that being said, we have 31.5 miles of coastline. More importantly, again, that is important, we have about 44 miles of the Clinton River, which is a fresh water. I call it our main street running through the center of the heart of Macomb County. So it's a very unique county in that, as far as the population based upon its size, we're rather large, and a lot of distinction as far as farmland in the north, and then obviously the the rural setting in the South.
I know you'll see what's going on here. We're trying to get to the infrastructure question here. This is a big structure you have here in Macomb County. Didn't know it wasn't as big as Wayne or Oakland. I'm surprised, but because on map they look the same. But you've got a lot going on here in this community. The rivers, the lakeshore, the water systems, the roads, the bridges. What's going on here, Mark? We, as you know, our listeners have just been fit to be tied this year with the way the bridges and the roads are, and it's been hard. Some people 4 or 5 flat tires. They've been spending times at places where they've had to drop their car off. They couldn't get it because it was a safety item, so they had to rent a car for the next day. What has gone on? Why are we at this point, and what are we going to do about it?
Nobody should be surprised. I mean, it's again, I share their complaints or their concerns because this is something that's been a progression of lack of, I guess, response. People have not done anything with these roads, and when I say that, I mean with the funding. To how do we actually fix these roads and how do we deal with it? In Macomb County alone, we just did our assessment, and I think we were the very first that has done that of the actual roadways themselves in Macomb County and a cost associated with it. So we have done our assessment on roads and bridges in Macomb County. In totality, right now, we got over 800 miles of roads in Macomb County that need reconstruction, and 44 bridges that need reconstruction. Some of them aren't out yet, but they're going to be.
These are safe bridges, though.
They are. And the minute they make a determination that they're no longer safe, there are some that have weight restrictions on them right now. One is already out of those 44, but it's closing in on the fact that we're going to probably be taking some more of those offlines. But 44 need to be reconstructed. Again, not fixed or anything, but again, the minute we see that this is something that's traveling, we're going to go ahead and take it offline. I think the problem with it is people tend to think that, okay, is the county responsible for all this? We're responsible for 44% of the roads in Macomb County. Local units of governments or cities are responsible for their areas. There's some streets that are ours as well in those areas, but it's so complex and so confusing. What is an MDOT road? What is a local city road? What is a township road? What is a county road? That being said, I can just assure them that in Macomb County, we know as far as the assessment, we have 800 miles of road that need reconstruction. I'm not talking about filling a pothole or fixing anymore because it's gotten beyond that point. 800 miles of road that need to be fixed. 44 bridges. With that being said,
why did it get to this point, though? I mean, 40 or 50 years of people talking about the infrastructure crumbling. Maybe not that long, but why did it take so long? This discussion takes so long to get to this point. Now everybody's tearing their hair out of their head. I mean, we talk about it at the station all the time. We're fit to be tied. I mean, you got to watch out when you're driving around the road. Some people are getting involved in accidents because they're trying to avoid potholes. And now we're going to have 696 rebuilt, which we'll talk about, but needs to be done. Why did it get to this point, though?
There isn't a road in Macomb County of those 800 miles that I know exactly the cost of it and how to fix it. I could put every one of those roads out for bid. The problem is there is lack of funding. And with that being said, it's a legislative responsibility to figure out how do we fund these roads. They come up with this $1.2 billion as if that was some kind of a gift, and they're saying, oh my God, we just solved the problem with $1.2 billion. In 2007, there was a study that was done on behalf of the state that said $1.9 billion is necessary to do nothing moving forward, just to keep things as they are. $1.9 billion was needed in 2007. And now we're in 2015. They say they got 1.2 billion, which was far less than the do nothing plan in 2007. Back then, they also said it was going to take $6 billion a year to start getting ahead of the problem back then. So this is not something new. This isn't something that the legislature wasn't aware of, or even the governor of the state of Michigan. So with that being said, nobody's wanted to act on it. Nobody's wanted to figure out how they come up with the proper funding. But to tell people today that we came up with 1.2 billion to fix this problem, as if that's going to be the solution when we're so far behind right now. And again, this isn't just a Macomb County thing. This isn't just a Southeast Michigan thing. This is an incredible problem for the entire state of Michigan that for some reason there's a neglect on behalf of the state to try to figure out how they solve funding-wise.
Do they neglect? We love the Detroit. I love when people ask me where I'm from. I'm born and raised in here, born and live on the west side. But I say I'm from Detroit. I mean, we all say we're from Detroit. But the rest of the state, it doesn't appear to always look at Detroit as we look at it. Is that? I'm sure it's a fair question to ask. Is it a fair question to ask? Do they look at the Southeast Michigan side differently now, especially as time is going on, and they're more worried about other parts of the state than they are Detroit?
Well, it's possible, but if you think about what they call Act 51, which was created in 1951, there was this need to figure out how do we continue with roadways and the systems up in the north end of the state. And so Act 51 provided an opportunity for what they call lane miles. In other words, it's based on lane miles. And so with that being said, what we ended up having to do was most of our money, or I shouldn't say most, but portions of our money would go to the north part of the state as an advantage, and we became somewhat of a donor county or donor counties to help out with the road systems. Well, now that that's changed and the roads up in the northern part of the state are probably a little bit nicer than it would be in the south part. The question is, how do we reverse Act 51 to start making it more proportional? In other words, give us some of that money or let us capture some of that money here in the south end of the state so that we can help deal with our roads and our problems we're having. But you got a legislator that is outnumbered. I mean, you've got a larger number of legislators that are part of the northern part that are saying, no, we're fine with the way the formula is. There's a benefit that they're getting to this. But there has to be somehow, some way, somebody to fix Act 51. But we've been talking about that and admiring that solution for years now. And well, that again, we're accepting federal funds. So when you accept federal funds, you can't have the toll roads. So that's another thing. People talk about weight restrictions. Most of our weight restrictions are no different than other states. People talk about the roads and saying, well, what are they using for materials and what are the guarantees? There are two issues with that. One is when people think about the roads themselves, they get this impression that they were just built. Mound Road is my biggest problem right now. From 696 to Hall Road, that's about a $150 million need right now to fix that, reconstruct it. That's what it needs. $150 million. For reconstruction, to reconstruct Mound Road from 696 to Hall Road. That road has been over 25 years old. That's over 25 years old. So it's going to have the wear. It's going to have the tear. There's going to be the problem. So it's not that because of, it was just built. There is a problem with that road. But if you think about $150 million to fix that road, my budget for reconstruction, just to reconstruct roads, is about $50 million a year that I get from state money and from federal money to use. $50 million a year would mean I'd have to take 3 years of my entire budget to try to figure out how do I fix Mound Road and do nothing else with those other 800 miles of roads and those other 44 bridges. It's a funding issue. There's no question about it. And again, this is not something that's new. This has been talked about for the last decade or two. And yet there's still an unwillingness to come up with a true solution to fund these roads.
But we hear you hollering from Macomb County. Do they hear you in Lansing? Are they saying, oh, there goes Mark
I think it's
there goes Mark Hackel,
exactly. I think.
What are they? How are they responding? Or what are you saying them to do? Let's get off your.
I think it's falling on deaf ears. And so with that being said, how do you get ahead of this? I don't know that there's going to be the legislative push or the ability for the legislators in Southeast Michigan to really have the impact to change this, because I think they're outnumbered, especially with Act 51, and the unwillingness of some to want to go ahead and figure out how do they raise taxes to figure out how do they fund roads appropriately. With that being said, I think it's going to take somebody in the governor's office to say, we need to prioritize. There's a lot of legislation. A lot of people want their bills signed for their various reasons, for the various constituencies, but we need to start prioritizing it. Right now, there is no question about it. The number one priority with the public and their interest is figuring out how do we fix these roads. And they want a true funding formula that they know that their pennies or their dollars are going directly to the roads, not some other pot of money, not someplace else. And we haven't fixed that yet. So I ought to offer it up for whoever the next governor is going to be, is that there are two things that need to be fixed. The tax structure, so we know where our money is going and how it's being spent. And the other one is to make sure that whatever we're doing has to have the first priority is coming up with a funding solution for fixing these roads, a true funding solution with real money that's actually going to impact those roads. And until those bills hit my desk and I can see that they're really going to have an impact, nothing else is going to start moving. I'm not signing anybody else's bill. I get it. They might have other priorities. There might be other interests out there. But these are the number one issues, and we need to fix that. If it means getting together and fixing Act 51 or coming up with a way of, increasing a sales tax but knowing directly where that money is going to go, then let's talk about it. But we need to figure out what that solution is. Unfortunately, for too long, we've been miring solutions. And until we do.
Should you be in that governor's office? Or so many people are saying, how about Mark Hackel? He'd be a great governor.
And I hear that. I hear that, but you know what? I was one of those that never really thought about running for sheriff, and I did, and I earned the trust of the public, and really admired the job. I loved the job, and then obviously now county executive. It was hard to leave being the sheriff to run for that office because I really adored that job. And now being county executive, I come to the realization that one thing I'm not afraid of is calling it out. In other words, what do I believe is the real problem? What are the real issues, and who's responsible to fix this? Let's get this going. Unfortunately, sometimes it causes you a little bit of headaches within the political structures because people aren't happy about that. But the reality is, if you're doing things that you believe is what the public's interest is, you'll always be on the right side of the issue. And so, I'm not running for governor. I'm not running for governor, and I'm still obviously more than likely I'll be running for county executive.
We appreciate you letting us come here and talk to you about this. Now let's get down to maybe some of the nitty gritty about. Talk about the RTA. That might be one solution some people are talking about. But let's first of all talk about 696. We're all kind of going, what the heck? There's no start date yet for this. What's taking so long to find out? Number one, when there's going to be a start date. I'm assuming you're on board with the rebuilding of 696 because it has to be done. But then once the westbound side's done, then the eastbound side will use a couple of those lanes with a couple of exits, 3 exits, to Quinder, Mound, and Groesbeck. Now, let's face it, Mound Road is a mess from 696 to 12 Mile. First of all, are you on board with the 696 rebuild plan? Does it look good to you? What about the rebuilding of the roads that people are going to have to exit or enter on? And what does the future look like for this?
Yeah, these are when you talk about 696, much like we're dealing with M59 right now, Hall Road, these are major construction projects, and MDOT's responsible for it. But with that being said, looking at what they just did with M59, they did an incredible job. I mean, let's face it, you're going to have problems with traffic. People are going to have a hard time getting around. There's going to be gridlock. You need to try to figure out how do you avoid it. But if you're caught up in it and there's no other way around it, understand that patience and tolerance has to be a part of this solution. With that, knowing that has to get fixed. I mean, there's no question about it. These have to get fixed. And so with that, there's no easy way of doing it. And, credit to MDOT with what they did with M59. They made it as seamless or as, I guess, painless as possible for not only the businesses, but people that were commuting and traveling through that area. I got to believe this is going to be problematic. It's going to be a challenge, but they're going to try to do the best they can with the same thing as far as educating the public, informing the public, and doing what is necessary. People are always questioning, why don't they close this lane, and why did they do that, and how come there's not as much access to it or whatever. It all deals with studies and traffic studies that they have to put together, and unfortunately sometimes you have to trust the engineers as far as what they're doing. So the challenges with Mound Road and that interchange are going to continue to be problematic, specifically because of the roadway itself on Mound Road that we don't have the funding for. We're working on something right now with the city of Warren where we might be able to at least kind of come up with a match to figure out how do we do something that isn't a reconstruction, because we just don't have the money for reconstruction, but it could be somewhat of what they call a major maintenance project, which is kind of a mill and pave.
On Mound Road.
On Mound Road.
And this year, while 696 is being done?
That's going to be the question. Do we have the money to match to put together, and then can we, again, people seem to think that just because you have the money, you could put this out. There's a lot that goes into it. Engineering studies, you have to have the permits if possible. You got to make sure that, you get the contractors, you put it out bid. It's a fair bid process. So the likelihood of actually coming out with something that's going to be a plan to do a mill and pave, which is a longer term fix than just filling it with pothole patch, is going to probably be sometime next year. But even so, if we were to do it this year, you talk about a major congestion problem and issue, especially with what we're doing in Sterling Heights from 14.5 mile to 18 mile road. It's going to be incredible gridlock as far as the public there. So we're working on something right now, and we're working, as I mentioned, with the city engineers and the city of Warren to figure out, is there a way of moving a project forward and getting ready to start that maybe the first part of next year, to do something that's better than a patch job and something that'll last maybe 5-10 years. We think we might have a solution, and I know the city of Warren is very interested in working with us on this.
But at least a patch job from maybe 696 to 12 or 14 mile, right? So at least, since it's going to be one of those ways to get to and from 696 when that side's done, people are going to be concerned about. It's teeth shattering, as we both know, going down that road for a lot of folks. You're going to be able to do something at least to help smooth it out.
Yeah, Dennis, you make a great point, and I say that for this reason. When that first thaw hit, it was the most incredible pothole problem we have ever seen. Probably in my life as a public official, and I've been around since 1981, working as a dispatcher all the way up through now being the county executive. I have never seen anything so atrocious and problematic, but yet we knew it was coming. We kept warning the public, this is going to be a problem, it's going to get worse. That was a major thaw, and it was a major issue. We had to call in 4 different contractors, private companies, to come in and help us with specific roads, and one of them we assigned specifically to Mound Road. We hired a company to say, you need to go out there and fill those potholes, because as far as the personnel that we currently have and availability, these people were working their 16-hour shifts. It couldn't even come close to keeping up with this. So we had to call in 4 different contractors to help us do the work. We had to talk to MDOT and tell them, hey, we have a contract with you with some of your main roads here. We need to call in a check. I think you're going to have to figure out how to solve your problem, because we can't continue to do that for you as well. So reached out to Warren, we reached out to Centerline, Sterling Heights, as well as Utica to say, hey, could we call in your DPWs to help us with some of our primary roads? And they did too. So we've been expending a tremendous amount of money on these roads and dealing with just potholes and pothole patches. So to your point is, we're going to continue as this project moves forward to try to figure out how do we do that, I guess, if you will, mill and pave, the longer term solution, making sure there's somebody out there trying to figure out how do they fill those potholes on a regular basis. But it's sad. I look back at my law enforcement days. Normally you're out on the street monitoring speeders if they're traffic, but now we're going to have people out there. They're going to be watching it. The minute a pothole comes into play, how do you fill it? So, I mean, it's unbelievable we got to this point where we're worried about how do we deal with maintenance from fixing potholes as opposed to construction for fixing roads. And there's no question about it. It's been neglect over the years and a lack of interest to figure out how do we fund this by the state.
Ask you if you have any inside track as to a date yet. Has a contractor been chosen yet? You have no idea about the 696 contract at all, have you? Because I know it's in Lansing, so you haven't heard. I'm asking for some secret information. It's selfish on my part, but if you, I know you'd share it if you knew. We keep hearing the end of April, early May. Is that what you keep hearing as well from MDOT?
It wouldn't surprise me if that's the date and the time frame of it. You know,
it's late to us. All of us think, well, why does it start right now?
Yeah. Well, again, now you got to deal with contractors and how long do contracts take. Our bigger concern right now is when we put out a contract or a bid for a project, because of the work that's that's out there and the number of companies that are there. A lot of these are coming in higher than what we'd anticipate. So now the costs have gone up. So if you think about what I mentioned before about this $1.9 billion need to do nothing back in 2007, the cost of construction and the work is gone. It's well beyond $1.9 billion to do nothing, and yet here they come up with a $1.2 billion fix. I mean, it's almost as if you're telling something to the public that's so disingenuous, but because it has a B at the end of it, people think, wow, that should solve the problem. $1.2 billion is what I need right now in Macomb County to fix my problem. So when you say you got $1.2 billion statewide that gets spread out through an Act 51, what it gives me is $5 million more a year in Macomb County, and $5 million gets me 2 miles of a 2-lane road. That's what $5 million gets me. A reconstruction.
Picking up litter or other things, keeping an eye on the road, waterways, things like that. That's not much money nowadays. Is $5 million.
And people don't understand that. They think of the what they think is you got $1.2 billion. That's what the state said. No, that is not true. I got $5 million, and I can't stress it enough. 800 miles of road. That $5 million gets me 2 miles of a 2-lane road for reconstruction. I can't keep up. There's no way possible you're going to be able to keep up with the funding that's available to you right now.
Okay, now I'm 65. We're not spring chickens. We've got some years to go. We want to be part of the community and so on. Things are changing. The newer generation might not be looking at the car like we used to look at the car. The roadways, making sure they're okay. A lot of them might be looking at autonomous cars, which I understand Mound Road is a real part of this process that's going on. But they're looking at the rapid transit systems, other ways to get around. I like my car, but some of the younger people I talk to, they don't care if they drive anymore. Is what we're seeing here? Are you sensing any change going on within the generations and the feelings that people have about, well, okay, the roads are bad, but let's change this look at the roads and look at maybe a rapid transit system, something that works for the region, for the state, that fits into the entire product around the country. What's your thoughts about this?
Well, I go back to the RTA plan. There's no question about it. People in Macomb County have always believed in regional transit. We did. We were the first ones that were all in on the SMART system back when they came about, but yet there was an opt-out by the city of Detroit, and they created DDOT. Even within municipalities in Wayne County as well as Oakland County, there were opt-outs. Not Macomb County. They were all in. 27 out of 27 municipalities participate in the SMART system. That was supposed to be the regional transit system. And why they didn't grow that system from that point forward, I really have no idea. I don't understand. I wasn't really part of that at the time. But yet I've noticed that any time there was a need to have a millage, a vote to try to figure out how do they renew the millage or increase the millage, the people in Macomb County have always supported it and wholeheartedly have supported it. Now when they come up with this regional transit plan and the suspicion is, okay, we're building trains and other monuments, in the south part of the region itself, and what about the Q line? People that believe in regional transit in Macomb County didn't believe in that plan. And so that 1.2 mil ask went down, overwhelmingly in Macomb County. In fact, 26 out of 27 communities said no, and the one that did pass was very slim margin. Yet, even if you took out the city of Detroit and you took out Ann Arbor, it failed in Wayne County and it failed in Washtenaw County as well as Oakland County. So, this whole thought that Macomb County voters just don't support regional transit couldn't be further from the truth. We've always been all in. We continue to be. I support, why don't we move that SMART system? Why don't we merge DDOT? Why don't we figure out how do we use the private side to help with the investment into this, as opposed to just reaching out to the suburbs and saying we need your money to build these projects, because that's exactly what the if you will, voters in Macomb County said. Hang on a second, fix roads first. I get it. We believe in transit. We have something here. What they're trying to get us to buy into isn't worth my money right now, and they said no. And so now the re-ask is not 1.2 mils. Now it's a 1.5 mils for what's different. So, this new plan that they put forward, The only thing different about it is it's a 0.3 mil increase from the last time they said no. And so when people say, well, you should turn to your voters and just have them vote on it anyways, I keep thinking, well, we already asked them at 1.2 mil, gave them a chance, and they said no. Why would I turn around and say it's the same plan, basically, but now they want 1.5 mil for it? Boy, I tell you, there isn't a person in Macomb County, I've not heard anybody call, flood my lines to say, hey, we need to do something with regional transit. There isn't a day that goes by that if I don't have 5, 10 people a day saying this road needs to be fixed, that road's a problem, how come these roads are terrible, why aren't we fixing these roads? That has been a constant issue since I've been in office for the last 7 years, and it is the number one concern. So until we fix roads first, the public ain't going to buy into anything else that's going on. It is the number one issue. And again, you know, we could talk about RTA all we want. It is not going to pass the voters here in Macomb County until we fix these roads first.
Mark Hackel's with us. Any comments or questions from the audience at all? Anybody? Yeah.
Evans plan and whether it's covering the outlying counties well enough in the regional transit.
Okay, the Evans plan covering the roads in the outlying county region. Are you familiar with this plan, and what does it mean, and what are you expecting to see?
You know, I guess I don't understand why they call it the Evans plan. I mean, I think Warren tried to get out ahead of this in the conversation, but there was a company that came in and started talking to the various communities, and there was really nothing different about it from Macomb County. You know, right, they are, and I understand why, you know, because he's the one that's kind of leading the charge on it. But really, when they stop and look at it, you know, the question becomes, you know, what was in it that was different from Macomb County other than a promise to help fix some of the roads, you know, like Mound Road. And I'm thinking, well, if I'm going to use, you know, taxpayer money to, you know, put towards a RTA to get money back to fix my roads, why wouldn't I just ask for an increase in Macomb County voters' millage to fix that road itself? You know, so there really was no advantage in looking at this new plan that's out there, or the one that's being suggested, you know, to Macomb. There's nothing really different about it, other than the fact it went from 1.2 mil to 1.5 mil. And so the people in Macomb County just aren't going to support it. I mean, I don't know what else, you know, to say, okay, let's just put it out there anyways. In fact, just the opposite. I get more people calling me saying, you know what, I can't believe they're still going after this. Why are they still pushing this thing? We haven't fixed our roads first. That is what I'm hearing every day from people, and I can't believe it's just a Macomb County thing. I know it's not. It's a regional problem right now.
Came at the right time. Yeah, go ahead.
One more. Keith is asking, how about making contractors warranty their work for a certain amount of years?
Okay. Contractors warranty their work. Thank you very much, Keith.
I love that question too. Again, talk about weight restrictions. We could talk about, you know, toll roads and everything else. There's an answer for everything. There's no question about it. But the warranty thing, you know, Mound Road is 25 years old, so people get the impression that it's not. Problem is, we are also doing what are called mill and paves, knowing that they're not going to last. There's 2 projects I got right now working on in Sterling Heights that were combined, 14.5 mile to 18 mile. That is going to be about a 5-6 year fix. So 5-6 years from now, people are going to say, wait a minute, didn't you just fix that road? It's awful. It's horrific. That's right, because we're not doing reconstruction on most of these roads. We're doing what are called heavy maintenance, and heavy maintenance does not have the longevity. So what people are missing the point on is that we're doing things because we don't have the money to do the full reconstruction that are only going to give it a temporary long-term fix. And it's better than putting patch into a pothole, but even the one I'm talking about with 696 to 14 Mile Road, that'll be about a 7-year fix. And about 7 years from now, 8 years from now, people are going to say to me, how come they didn't warranty that work? They should have done something. We just had that thing fixed. Well, it's because we did it knowing there were going to be a problem. And with the lack of funding, there's a lack of money or funding for what we call preservation. What's preservation? It's like when you buy a car, one of the first things they tell you is to extend the life expectancy of your engine, do frequent oil changes, 6 months or 6,000 miles. Well, if you don't have the money for the oil change and you just kind of let it go by, or you let it slide because you need the money to spend elsewhere, you're going to have a problem with that engine at some point in time, and it's not going to last as long. That's what we're dealing with even with the funding. A large portion of our funds are to try to figure out how do we deal with life expectancy or maintenance on these roads, and we don't have the money to continue to do that as well. So we're starting to see some of the expectancies or life expectancies of the roads being somewhat problematic. So warranties, if you buy something from the store, you could buy a 2-year warranty, a 5-year warranty, but there's a cost associated with the warranty. So if we're going to expect contractors to put warranties on these projects, now it's going to cost me more per lane mile to have them do the work, because now they've got to guarantee some kind of an insurance policy that if something's wrong with the road. So now you're adding cost to the project themselves. So
It's like putting credit life on your credit card in case something happens to you. Your credit card's going to get paid off, or your car's going to get paid off. Is basically what you're saying.
I get it. And some of these roads, yeah, there are concerns. Just thinking, like Hall Road, how did it get to deteriorate the way it did? In some of the subdivisions, you're right. But the question becomes, is there some kind of a guarantee you want to put forth? And then now, some of these companies, what if they're not in existence? Who are you going to sue? Who are you going to go after to get it? So, it's a very complex issue, and I think people have simplistic responses to this. We've been admiring solutions over the years, but there is no question about it. People can talk about all they want. They're not going to be able to talk around the issue that we have defunded roads for so long and neglected them for so long that now the time is to pay the piper. Right now, we got to figure out how to become out. I don't even know if they're going to be able to tax their way out of it. I mean, it has been such a problem over the years and neglect over administrations at the state level. Now they're almost washing their hands of it and saying, well, you need to come up with a millage at the local level because we put you in such a dire position now. And with that being said, really, I'm dissatisfied and disappointed with, I think, the leadership at the state level for many years. It's not just.
I'm wondering, are you going to see then, and this is looking out politically, I'm not here to talk about politics with you. Are you seeing, is there going to be a change? Excuse my voice, drying out a little bit. You're going to see a change then in Lansing and say, you know what, people are tired of this. You promised all these things that we're going to do. Or I'm saying that's what people are saying. I'm not suggesting that everybody's saying that. And we're going to give you this pool of money, and how can we trust you to do this, to use this pool of money effectively for all the counties and all the roads? You think we're going to see a change coming here in the state legislature for people who are going to come through on their promises? Or is this Dennis with his rose-colored glasses approach to life thinking, if we just do that, it'll get better?
Yeah, I think it's the rose-colored glasses. I think you're just looking at, temporary solutions just to get by, to pass through an election cycle. I mean, that's what I think you're finding with most legislatures at this point in time is, what do we do? And I know they get mad hearing this. They get upset with it. But let's be realistic. Right now, I think the intent is, how do I get through a primary? How do I get through a primary is one of the more, concerning problems for people. Do I need to be more left? Do I need to be more right? Do I need to be more centered because, I know where this is going to get me in the end? Most of the times, we're trying to figure out how do we get through a primary election so that we can get our position back, in other words, whatever it is, or if I'm term limited, where do I need to go next? So they're really not coming up with real solutions to figure out how do we fix these problems. I think term limits might have been a problem with that because, they're not really spending the time to figure out how to come up with real solutions to fix these problems. So I think that's a challenge.
Another question.
Julie Marshall is,
hey, Julie.
is in Livonia, and she near Plymouth. She's having a hard time, getting to work. There's no buses where she lives. Would the regional transit plan help or hurt that, or can you speak on that?
No.
Again, I'm not sure the Livonia plan, what that does for Livonia. I just know that in Macomb County, we've been able to work with our smart provider when it comes to providing it. In fact, Amazon, which is a new facility that's coming out here in Shelby Township, an incredible structure, a $1 million square foot facility, and they're bringing in over 1,000 people. They had direct contact with Smart and conversations with Smart to try to figure out how they help people get to and from jobs in and around this area with a commuting pattern that is more now east-west than it is north-south. So with that being said, Smart is already having those contacts and having conversations to figure out how do they help them solve that problem. So I keep going back to this the Smart option. Maybe we call it Smart Plus, whatever it is. Why aren't we taking a current provider that we have faith in, we have trust in, and Macomb County has supported year after year and, always been on board with? Why aren't we growing a system that we trust? Why aren't we migrating DDOT into that? There is the possibility that it can happen, and then incrementally sell it to the voters to say, you know what, here's what we need to add another feature. Here's what it's going to cost on a millage increase to get there or whatever. I think we're going to get there. I think there's a possibility of doing just that. But Smart has been a great provider for Macomb County, and, again, people wouldn't support the millages if they didn't think so.
I'm thinking, Julie, you probably have tried to use Smart to get to work, to try to get to your job. And I understand this RTA is supposed to enhance the program from what we heard from the folks who are talking to them and the Warren Evans plan, so to speak. It's not his plan. And what they're hoping was that they would get all the other counties involved in it, or weren't they, to get them to feed into this system that would be a full package. So if Julie wanted to go to work in Macomb County, let's say in Mount Clemens, she could go from Livonia, make maybe 2 connections at the most, maybe 3 connections. I don't know. I don't ride the bus, but I can see where folks like Julie are concerned. Well, how can I get downtown? How do I get to the airport? And this regional system, she gets older. I mean, are we going to make it to the doctor, make it to the hospital? All these systems somehow have to start helping folks maybe like me in 10 years. I won't be able to drive anymore, Mark. So I feel her pain. So the Smart, you're trying to say, let's get Smart involved in this and get them to help with this. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think we do it at a fraction of the cost. I mean, you talk about this connector, or whatever. If the real solution is to try to figure out how to get people to and from work, how to get people that are in need of getting to a doctor visit, or help kids get to educational institutions, there's no question the current providers can come together to provide that solution. You look at what SMART is doing right now with the fast transit down into the city of Detroit. The city of Detroit isn't paying into the SMART system, but yet the suburbs are paying the cost to have that SMART system go down into Detroit to pick people up and bring them out into Macomb County. And it's not just Macomb County; they're also running a route on Woodward Avenue. This isn't picked up by DDOT. And they're already providing that. So they're providing solutions based upon a need of really transporting people that need to get to and from. I think where the real rub comes in is when people start talking about, why do we need rail? Why do we need light rail? Why do we need to figure out how do we pay for the Q line? I'm telling you, in Macomb County, that's one of the biggest concerns. Why are we going to pay for that Q line? That should be a private investment. It was when it was built, and it was when it was put into play, and that's what was talked about. But now they're trying to figure out how do we help fund that moving forward. And the people of Macomb County, I'm telling you, they're just not supportive of that at all.
Mark Hackel, thank you very, very much for taking the time with us. I know you're a very busy man. There's been a lot of activity in the county. We hope you've squared away on some of the things that have been going on for you. We don't have to get into detail on that. That's more of a news item. But you talked about some very important things. I appreciate you letting us come here and talk to you about this. Thank you so much. Thanks for the effort that you're doing here in Macomb County. Mark Hackel has joined us on Facebook Live today on this day. We thank you for your comments, looking in. Share with your friends, again, Facebook, what we've done today. And we want to thank, again, Mark Hackel. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's very, very nice of you to do that. We'll see you next time on Facebook Live. Of course, we'll see you at 9:50 a.m. Traffic and weather together on the 8th. And, of course, a lot of folks, we really appreciate when you call in and let us know about what's going on. Your comments, we take them to heart. We try to pass along that information as well. We'll see you next time on Facebook Live. We'll see you on the radio.